Most people are convinced they need 10 acres, a big barn, and a decade of farming experience before they can feed themselves. Jacob Stoltzfus proved all of that wrong before he turned 60. On a half-acre plot outside of Holmes County, Ohio, this Amish grandfather feeds a family of 6 entirely from his property. No grocery runs for protein, no utility bills for heating water, no store-bought dairy. Just 7 animals, carefully chosen, working together like moving parts in a clock. I spent 3 days watching him work, and what I saw changed the way I think about land, food, and what it actually takes to live independently. Here's exactly what he keeps and why. Because get the order wrong and you're doing triple the work. Get it right and each animal feeds the next, and the whole system basically runs itself. Animal number 1, heritage laying hens. The first thing Jacob showed me wasn't the most impressive thing on his property. It was also the most important. 8 hens. 8 Plymouth Rock hens pecking through a half-acre of grass like they owned the place, because honestly, they did. Here's the math that earns those birds their keep. 8 heritage hens produce roughly 1,800 to 2,000 eggs per year when managed properly. That's 5 or 6 eggs hitting your basket every single morning. For a family of 4, that's breakfast solved completely before you spend a single dollar at a grocery store. But the breed decision matters more than anything else a beginner will ever choose. Plymouth Rocks, Dominiques, Black Australorps, these heritage birds do something commercial ISA Browns and Golden Comets simply cannot. They lay steadily for 4 to 5 years. Commercial hybrids peak hard, then collapse after 18 months. Jacob's eldest hen was 4 years old and still laying 5 eggs a week. He's never replaced his flock in the decade since he started. The free-range secret cuts the feed bill by almost 40%. 2 hours of morning ranging, and those birds hunt their own protein. Earthworms, beetles, grasshoppers, lawn grubs, they come back to the coop already half-fed. You spend less, they produce more. The logic defies itself until you watch it work. One mistake Jacob saw kill beginner flocks repeatedly: overcrowded coops in winter. 4 square feet per bird minimum inside. Less than that, and you'll see feather picking, chronic stress, and egg production that drops straight off a cliff. Give them room. The eggs pay it back. Breakfast is handled, but 5 nights of dinner still need solving, and the next animal does it in a space that'll make your jaw drop.
Animal number 2, meat rabbits. Jacob's rabbit shed is smaller than most people's garden shed, 12 feet by 10 feet. Inside it, 18 rabbits, 5 does, 1 buck, and a rotation of growing kits produce more meat per year than most families eat in a grocery store run. The feed conversion is the number that stops everyone cold. A meat rabbit turns 4 pounds of feed into 1 pound of dressed meat. A beef cow needs 8 pounds of feed for 1 pound of beef. Read that again. Rabbits are twice as efficient at converting feed to protein as any other livestock most homesteaders would even consider. 1 productive doe cycles through 4 to 5 litters annually. Each litter produces 5 to 8 kits. Those kits reach harvest weight in 8 to 10 weeks. Do the math across 3 does, and you're looking at 60 to 90 pounds of lean, white meat per year without expanding your operation by a single square foot. My brother-in-law set up a 2-doe colony operation in a backyard shed on a quarter-acre suburban lot 2 years ago. His neighbors didn't know the rabbits existed for the first 8 months. Then he showed up to a block party with 3 pounds of marinated rabbit stew. Now 2 other neighbors on his street have does. The critical mistake most beginners make: ventilation. Ammonia from rabbit urine builds up in closed sheds and destroys their respiratory systems within weeks. Ventilate aggressively.
Fresh air isn't optional, it's the whole operation. And those droppings fall straight to your garden beds with zero waiting. Cold manure, instant results, no burning. Your soil will notice before you even do. Protein is handled morning and evening. But what about dairy? A family needs calcium, fresh milk for cooking, and something to trade when the chickens have a slow week. Animal number 3, dwarf goats. 2 feet tall, standing barely knee-high, and yet a quality dwarf doe produces between a pint and half-gallon of milk daily. Milk with a butterfat content so rich it makes commercial store milk taste like flavored water by comparison. Jacob keeps 3 does on his half-acre. They share a 3-sided shelter barely larger than a garden shed. His wife Sarah makes soft cheese every Friday from the surplus. Fresh chev that she trades at the local Amish market for canning jars, fabric, and garden starts. 3 does fund a surprising portion of household supplies without Jacob ever touching cash. The digestibility advantage is real and it matters. Goat milk has smaller fat globules than cow milk, which means it begins digesting before it even leaves your stomach. People who've spent years avoiding dairy often find they tolerate fresh goat milk without any reaction at all. My father-in-law spent 60 years convinced he was lactose intolerant. 2 weeks on fresh goat milk and his symptoms disappeared. His doctor still doesn't have a clean explanation. Here's the beginner mistake that costs people a full year of production: buying one goat. A solitary goat will stand at your fence and scream until your neighbors file a complaint, stop cycling properly, and drop production for months. Goats are herd animals at a biological level. Always buy 2. Always. A quality dwarf doe runs $250 to $500. Your family likely spends $1,200 or more on dairy products annually. The math closes faster than most people expect. Dairy covered, but there's a pest problem on every half-acre that no grain-fed animal will solve. The next animal works for free, eats nothing you'd miss, and your neighbors will never hear a sound.
Animal number 4, Muscovy ducks. Muscovy ducks look like someone designed a bird by committee and ran out of budget for the face. Red caruncles, heavy bodies, slow waddle. They win no beauty contests. Jacob keeps a flock of 8, and he'd sooner give up his garden than part with them. Here's what they actually do. One Muscovy duck consumes mosquito larvae, ticks, slugs, and Japanese beetles at a rate that makes chemical pesticides look lazy and expensive. No spraying schedule, no safety data sheets, no drift zones near your vegetable beds. The ducks patrol, eat, and leave behind naturally fertilized ground everywhere they walk. The silence is the thing that surprises people most. Muscovies don't quack. The drakes produce a low hiss. The hens make a soft trilling sound. Jacob's closest neighbor is 60 feet away. She didn't know he kept ducks for 2 full years. When he finally told her, she asked if she could buy eggs. That's the other advantage. Muscovy duck eggs are larger than chicken eggs, richer in flavor, and command $6 to $9 per dozen at farm stands and farmers markets. They sell out before chicken eggs every single Saturday. One thing Jacob never skips: clipping the primary flight feathers on one wing every 6 months. These birds fly well enough to relocate themselves permanently if you don't stay on top of it. 1 wing, 6 months. 10 minutes of work that saves you from losing your entire flock to a neighbor's yard. Pest control handled, eggs diversified. But what about something that builds your soil, fills your freezer, and costs almost nothing to feed through winter?
Animal number 5, American guinea hogs. Most people hear pig and think 400 pounds of infrastructure problems. American guinea hogs aren't that. Full-grown, they top out at 150 to 180 pounds. Compact, calm, and genuinely easy to manage alone. No equipment required. Jacob runs 2 guinea hogs on rotating garden patches through spring and fall. He uses a single strand of electric fence, nothing sophisticated, and moves them weekly. Where those pigs have been, Jacob doesn't need a rototiller. They root, turn, fertilize, and aerate soil in a single pass. By planting time, those patches are ready without Jacob touching a shovel. They eat almost nothing he pays for. Windfall apples from his 2 trees, garden waste, spent vegetable plants, milk whey from his wife's cheese making. Guinea hogs evolved foraging for themselves, and they're extraordinarily good at it. Feed costs per pig run a fraction of what commercial breeds demand. The lard is worth raising them for alone. Jacob's wife renders guinea hog lard into the clearest, cleanest cooking fat you've ever seen. Her pie crusts are the reason 3 neighboring families put in a standing order for 1 hog per year. That's the operation paying for itself and then some. One rule that a local Amish farmer learned the hard way and passed on: keep pigs no less than 100 feet from your water source. Their waste nitrogen seeps into groundwater faster than most people realize. Distance is non-negotiable. Soil built, freezer filled. But what if you need eggs in 6 weeks instead of 6 months, and your township bans every bird you've tried to keep?
Animal number 6, Cornix quail. 6 weeks. That is the time between buying quail chicks and collecting your first eggs. Chickens take 5 to 6 months to even approach laying age. Cornix quail don't believe in waiting. Jacob keeps 40 quail in stacked wire cages inside a corner of his rabbit shed. 40 birds producing 30 to 35 eggs daily in a footprint smaller than a dining room table. He runs the math simply. 40 quail, space of a coffee table, outperforming a modest chicken flock in eggs per square foot by a factor most people can't believe until they see it. Here is where the legal angle changes everything for people in suburban or restricted areas. A significant number of townships and municipalities across the United States do not classify Cornix quail as poultry. They fall under a completely different regulatory category. People who cannot legally keep 3 chickens on their property are raising 40 quail in their garage right now. That is not a loophole someone invented. That is how the classification laws actually read in many jurisdictions. Check your local ordinances carefully. The eggs themselves carry a nutritional profile that surprised me. Per gram of protein, quail eggs outperform chicken eggs in vitamin B12, iron, and several B vitamins. Amish roadside stands move pickled quail eggs, brined in apple cider vinegar with pickling spice, at $7 to $10 per dozen, consistently every weekend. One catch: quail almost never go broody. You need a small incubator to maintain your flock. A decent model runs $50 to $70, holds 48 eggs, and pays for itself after your first successful hatch. Eggs covered in 6 weeks, but the 7th animal doesn't just produce food, it multiplies everything growing on your half-acre simultaneously. Animal number 7, honeybees. Jacob saved the bees for last when he walked me through his property. He said everything else feeds the family. The bees feed everything else. One healthy hive sends 50,000 to 60,000 foragers out daily across a 2-mile radius. Every flower, every fruiting plant, every vegetable blossom within that radius gets visited repeatedly. Jacob's tomato plants began producing 35 to 40% more fruit the first full season after he installed 2 hives. His squash and cucumber yields jumped. His apple trees, which had been producing inconsistently for years, began setting fruit on nearly every blossom. The bees didn't just produce honey, they restructured the output of everything else he grows. The honey itself is pure income. One established colony produces 40 to 60 pounds of surplus honey annually. Surplus meaning what remains after the bees keep what they need to winter. Jacob sells raw local honey at $14 to $16 per pound. 2 hives produce enough surplus to fund his entire seed and feed budget for the year, not supplement it, fund it entirely. The beeswax byproduct adds another revenue stream entirely. Rendered beeswax from 1 hive supplies a full year of hand salve, lip balm, wood conditioner, and candles. Jacob's wife makes nothing from the store that beeswax can make at home. Timing is everything. Buy packaged bees in March or early April. Later purchases cost more and give colonies less time to build winter stores. And Jacob faces every hive entrance southeast. Morning sun reaches the entrance first, warms the cluster early, and gets his bees foraging a full hour before the neighbors' colonies even stir. 7 animals, half an acre, a family of 6 eating entirely from their own land. Jacob Stoltzfus isn't doing anything that requires special knowledge, expensive equipment, or inherited farmland. He's doing what the Amish have done for 300 years, choosing the right animals in the right order and letting them work together. Hens feed the soil, rabbits fill the freezer, goats cover dairy, ducks handle pests, hogs build the garden, quail produce eggs in 6 weeks, and bees multiply every single thing that grows. The system works because each animal supports the next. That's not farming, that's engineering with livestock. And you can start it on whatever ground you already have.